tonight. She said, take it, I want more, nothing like ever before. I can give it all. Take it, I want more, nothing like ever before. I can give it all. Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Heard it from a friend that you spent and you're running now. Take it now. Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Messages you sent to an end. You're hiding now. Why the doubt? Tell me, have we met? Heard it from a friend. Taking too long. Shaking on the phone. Red flagging by your side. So they can't get taken. Take it, I want more, nothing like ever before. I can give it all. Take it, I want more, nothing like ever before. I can give it all. Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Heard it from a friend that you spent and you're running now. Take it now. Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Messages you sent to an end. You're hiding now. Why the doubt? Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Heard it from a friend that you spent and you're running now. Take it now. Tell me, have we met on a night out or in something that I read? That instead, I'ma find out. Messages you sent to an end. You're hiding now. Why the doubt?
What up, YouTube? RicoKnows here. Shout out to everybody. Happy Father's Day. Shout out to my dad, man. My father's name is Tony. Shout out to Tone, the Big Bone, Al Capone. My pops was a hardworking man. You know, when he was 21 years old, he had 4 kids. And before we get the show started today, I just want to tell him what a wonderful job he did with his children. You know, 2 of his children are retired first sergeants from the United States Army. The other 2 are highly successful. And then he had a 5th child later on in life. But the first 4 of us, we all came from the same mother, came from the first marriage he had. And my father was divorced at 21 and had to figure out a way to raise us. And this is a man with no high school diploma. This is a man with, limited resources in life. And he's a construction worker and a DJ and a gardener and worked in the fields as a kid. And it's just something pretty remarkable what can come out of that, right? You learn work ethic. And there's a speech I gave on YouTube a while ago. It's probably about 5 years old now. When I was getting promoted to Master Sergeant. It's about, I think it was 2019. And I go on like a 20 or 30 minute speech monologue, and I talk about what my father means to me. And it's days like this I never forget, man. He taught me to be the best at everything you do. He was the best I ever knew in every realm that he ever worked. And it's pretty neat to share my life successes with him. I text him often. I let him know how proud I am to be his son. He watches my live streams all the time. And I'm sure he'll watch this one at some point. But what I want you guys to understand is we don't need to praise dads once a year. We don't need this fictitious holiday the government created to boost the economy, which is the case with most holidays. Just love your people for who they are. And if they made your life better, more power to them. If they didn't, let's say you grew up without a father, well, then use those examples of what you don't want to be. And, Every person you meet, you're either learning something you want to take from them and keep and emulate, or you're learning what you don't want to be. And with that being said, today's show is about coaches in the group of 5 level. And most coaches are father figures. They're viewed as father figures, and they're just like I described. They are people there to help mentor you, mold you, develop you, and they have to get results on Saturdays. But I'd say a lot of these players, they're going to come from these coaching trees. They're going to come from these young men, and they're going to say, all right, I'm sorry, these young men are going to come out of these teams and eventually become coaches, much like these players. And I just hope that they look back on it and they have fond memories of what they've been molding and building. Now, in today's show, you guys know the deal. I just did a live stream the other day talking about every single coach at the Power 5 level. And I put them in different categories. I went with like unproven, needs improvement, or below average, average, good, great, and elite. This time around, I'm not doing that. This time around, I had some free time today. I had some time today, and I went ahead and ranked all the coaches. So all the group of 5 coaches, I ranked them. It'll be on a Twitter post so we can go back and talk about it historically. Sweetie, can you do me a favor? Can you hit that light for me? And I don't know how the lighting's going to go when she hits this light. Give me a second here. But I want to thank you guys for being here on Father's. I know some of you guys are watching the UFL championships. Yeah, that's a little better for me. Okay, and but we're going to talk about coaches. And I have a little bit of notes in front of me. It is 66 different coaches. I know them. I'm very aware of who they are. But I don't think I could memorize every little tidbit I wanted to say to you guys, so I wrote some notes down. You guys know me. I'm notorious for not having notes and just going off the cuff. I can do that, but I don't want to miss certain talking points on each coach, so I wrote a little something down for you guys. But we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. There are 66 coaches, so we're going to get it going. And I want to be very clear. This has nothing to do with how their team's going to perform next year. How your team performs next year is a byproduct of your greatness as a coach. It's also a byproduct of the seniority of your players. If you're in a certain year where all your star players are seniors, then more than likely you're going to do pretty well. If you play in a substandard conference, you're going to do pretty well. But you could be a first-year coach or a second-year coach in a very difficult situation, and you might not do that well. That doesn't mean you're a bad coach. It also doesn't mean you're a great coach because teams are winning. Trust. Shout out to Jimbo Fisher. But we're going to look at group of 5 coaches. I want to try to introduce you guys to group of 5 coaches. I'll probably do about 10 of them, and then I'll jump to the chat. So if you're watching us on TikTok, move over to YouTube. Get your question, comment, concern, whatever in the chat. I got you. Yes, I know the kitchen is behind me. If you aren't aware, we're selling the house, and I had to move out of the lab. Couldn't hang anything on the wall, so I don't have my usual banners. I don't have my usual setup. I know I'm in the kitchen. Please refrain from reminding me. It's all good. It smells good. It smells like food over here. Shout out to the wonderful Kim Jones. All right, so let's get after this list. I'll show you guys the chart. You won't be able to see all of it at once. I'll be scrolling up as I go, but we're going to start with the very last head coach in the rankings. It's Biff Poggi. I don't even have to go look at my notes on Biff. He's the head coach at Charlotte. Now, let me make something very clear. I think so highly of Biff Poggi and his approach to coaching that I really wanted him to succeed at Charlotte. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to succeed. Yes, he's a former businessman, hedge fund manager of some sort or something like that. He started coaching in the high school ranks in Baltimore area and in the DMV area, all that stuff, and he became great, and he made a perennial power. Then he decided, okay, well, the people that played against him didn't want him in the league anymore because his teams were just too dominant. They were recruiting, others weren't, whatever's the case. So he decided to jump on Michigan's staff at some point. He was like an advisor, an assistant, an analyst, something of that degree. And then he went and he got the head coaching job at Charlotte. Here's what I saw at Charlotte last year in his first year at the collegiate level. I saw chaos and disorganization. Yes, every player that was ever associated with his high school program transferred in. I think it was something like 27 27 kids from one specific high school over the course of, a 6-year gap of graduates. It doesn't matter. Were they great? Are they great? Sure. The players individually are pretty damn good. And there's a number of them that are pretty good. I'd say only about 2 of them are left. And yes, they got Max Brown coming in at quarterback from Florida. You could be excited about it. But they lost so much momentum in my assessment of them because of the coaching staff. They weren't holding people accountable. There were outbursts on the sideline. Undisciplined football week in and week out is what I saw from Charlotte. And I think there's another issue here where Biff Poggi and his position coaches aren't assessing talent properly. I see guys on that bench better than the starters. I really do. Third string running backs finally getting an opportunity rushing for almost 300 yards. That's not a good thing. That means you are terrible at assessing your talent and your players, and I don't like it. I just saw Kenny Burns talking about this, and I'm going to talk about Kenny when he comes on the list here soon. But Kenny Burns, the head coach at Kent State, he was talking about how he doesn't mind if his program's a stepping stone to help players get to the Power 5 level. He doesn't mind about any of that stuff. He doesn't want to be the best at recruiting. He wants to be the best at evaluating. I've been saying this for 2 years. Position coaches that can evaluate talent are far more valuable than those that can recruit a little better than the others. You can recruit with money. You can go out, let's say you're dating women. If you were dating women, you can get some fine-ass girls if you got the right money. Ask Hugh Hefner. You can get some bomb-ass girls if you got the right money. But you're not evaluating what they bring to the table. You're not evaluating their talent. You're not evaluating their ability to contribute to your life and their level of commitment to you. And it's problematic. So as a coach, some of these guys can recruit their ass off when they have money backing them. Sure, you'll get a great recruiting class if you got all the right money backing you. Ask Texas A&M back in 2022. The all-time greatest recruiting class. It stuck together for all of about 8 months. And then everybody jumped ship. There was no camaraderie. There was no dedication. And you didn't get a whole lot of great blue chippers. Oh, they were 5-star kids. They're 4-star kids. Oh, my goodness. The recruiting websites, they got all the huddle film. They got all the highlights. They don't have any metric for work ethic, commitment, professionalism. They don't have any metric for character. None. It's not even a part of their evaluation. And that's where you get into these problems. So if you can assess players, you'll be great. I think Biff Poggi's staff doesn't do that. And I think Biff Poggi, as a CEO of a football program, is the worst in America. The absolute worst. And that's saying something because Tony Sanchez just got hired again. Next on the list is Tony Sanchez at New Mexico State. Going to New Mexico State, this is a 10-win team. You have to replace Jerry Kill, right? You have to replace a great coaching staff who just all departed to go to Vanderbilt to run that offense, to be offensive analysts, to go with all their transfers to Vanderbilt. Welcome to the SEC. So Jerry Kill resigns, and they scramble at New Mexico State, and they hire Tony Sanchez. Don't take it personal, Tony. Don't take it personal, New Mexico State players. I know a lot of them follow the channel. I've actually talked to New Mexico State players in the DMs on the phone. I've given some of them some advice on the transfer portal. A lot of players reach out to me, so when I talk about teams, I don't want them to ever take it personal. But I'm telling you, Tony Sanchez, when I have to compare him to his peers, there's no way he should have that job at New Mexico State. That man was a head coach at UNLV, excuse me, and he went 20-40, bro. 20-40 at UNLV from 2015 to 2019. Not good. Not good. And speaking of not good, we are at the bottom of the rankings. We are at the bottom of the rankings, and there's Sonny Cumbie. Sonny Cumbie should be fired this year. Obviously, Tony Sanchez won't be fired. It's his first year. Biff Poggi has the potential to not be fired as well, just because they know they're building from the ground up. Gerard Parker, first year at Troy, not getting fired. But Sonny Cumbie should be fired this year. This is a former offensive genius. I think he was a quarterback at Texas Tech. I know he was a quarterback at Texas Tech. But I'm saying he was an offensive coordinator at Texas and a couple other schools, and he looked the part. You thought, oh, man, this guy's going to run that air raid, that Mike Leach air raid. And he gets players that you think are going to do it. Remember, it's not his fault Trey Harris left and went to Ole Miss. He had Smoke Harris. He had Hank Bachmeier last year. They're still not getting it done. There's something wrong there. He's 6-18 over the last 2 seasons. I don't see how he keeps his job at La Tech. And the players he signed in the transfer portal, they're all kind of like cast-offs. They're all just the bottom of the barrel guys. Some of the best players left in the portal aren't even contemplating La Tech. They'd rather go JUCO. That's a sad day, bro. That's a sad day. And I think La Tech's in a state of hurt with Sonny Cumbie. Gerard Parker, I touched on it at Troy. Just an unproven guy. It's his first year taking over for John Summer, who's a great player, or a great coach, I'm sorry. But my note on Gerard Parker, let me tell you what I wrote on my note here. Only 43 years old, been at Kentucky, Marshall, Purdue, and Duke, Penn State, West Virginia, and Notre Dame. Dude's been everywhere. At 43 years old, he's been everywhere. I don't know what he's going to bring to the table for Troy. I can ask Evan Kramer. I know he works with the recruiting staff there. We can find out. But from my perspective, one of the lowest ranked coaches out there just because he's never done the job. This is his first opportunity. And everywhere he's been, it's never really moved me like that. I thought it was a terrible hire at the time that they hired him. I think I was very adamant on that in a video somewhere. So shout out to Gerard Parker. I hope he does well at Troy. He has the resources to do well. They have good players. Georgia and Alabama feed that school with players. They got a shot. Next is Timmy Chang. I love Timmy Chang. If you don't know football from the early 2000s, Timmy Chang is an all-time great quarterback. Played at St. Louis High School, was one of the top, he was like a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. And he stayed home, went to Hawaii. He and June Jones put Hawaii on the map. They really did. And then Colt Brennan went ahead and showed up after he got kicked out of Colorado for breaking into a girl's locker room. Rest in peace. But when I tell you Timmy Chang was him, Timmy Chang is an amazing quarterback. Now he's a head coach at Hawaii, and it's so difficult to be good when you've never run a program before. You don't know the off-season schedule quite right. In other words, his only position before he had this job was at Nevada as a quarterbacks coach. So you go from quarterbacks coach, I do not like position coaches, to head coach. I think it's problematic. They haven't had enough exposure as coordinators, associate head coaches. They haven't run the ship before, and all of a sudden they're in charge. It's a bit much. You work the fries. I don't know if you're ready to be the district manager. I don't feel that way. And that's what happened to Timmy Chang. Yes, he's a hometown hero. What he's going to need to do, now he has his quarterback coming back this year in Traeger, but what he's going to need to do is he's going to need to keep guys on the island, man. If you go look at recruiting classes from Hawaii over the last 5 years, top 10 players, the top 10 players in the state, none of them stay at Hawaii. None of them go to Hawaii. They are feeding the Pac-12 teams. They are going to Michigan and Baylor. They're going to anywhere in Utah. They're out of here. And yes, there's religious, correlation with that. But it's really difficult to be successful in Hawaii if you don't keep everybody on the island. Keep these guys on the island, you would be dominant. Just get one top 10 guy. Just one. That's all I ask. Right? So Timmy's struggling with that, and it's a damn shame because I really like Timmy Chang. Next up is Jay Saulville at Wyoming. If you didn't know, Craig Bohl, the legendary coach out of North Dakota State. Craig Bohl was the first North Dakota State Bison head coach to move over to the FBS. He showed up at Wyoming for the last couple of years. Past 4 years, I think. He just finally retired, and then Jay Saulville takes over. Okay. We'll see. I think he was the defensive coordinator at Wyoming. I'm not too excited about it. He does have a good running back. Shout out to Harrison Whaley. I love that kid. He plays great. Go watch film. Harrison Whaley's him. Wyoming does have good players. They've just been transferring lately. They've been leaving, right? They've been going to USC on the offensive line. They've been going back to Wisconsin because for some reason, somehow, some way, Wyoming had a pipeline to Nebraska and Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. It's insane. So it might have been Nebraska. Either way, I think he's got his work cut out. There's no way I can rank Jay Saulville any higher. Unproven. He's there. Stan Drayton. Stan Drayton is a great positions coach, running backs coach. He's at Temple. Obviously, you just lost your quarterback at Temple. There's not much to say about it. 2-14 is what Temple is in the conference over the last 2 years. 2-14 in the American Athletic Conference. That is not good. And if you're a coach and you're going 2-14 in conference, you're getting fired. Now, they have been assessing some pretty solid talent. They had a linebacker. He's great. Kobe Wilson, I believe his name is. He transferred to SMU. They found a stud. Right? They had E.J. Warner. He just left for Rice. But they found players. They're just getting up and they're leaving, and you have to keep reinventing the wheel, and it's just difficult to do at Temple. And I don't know if Drayton's got that process down. So he's down here at 60. Before I go on, I'm going to go to the chat, and then I'll get back at it. So if you have a question, comment, concern, go ahead and put it in. We're talking about Group of 5 head coaches. Remember that. Stay focused, and then you'll see the rankings as we go. Shout out to Terry Ambrosher. She says, Happy Father's Day, Rico. Thank you so much. I am a father as well. I want to give a shout out to my dad at the beginning of the show, but obviously I am a father of 4 beautiful children out there in this world. 3 out of the 4 texted me this morning. First thing I woke up. I'm so proud of them. And, that's I'm batting pretty good. Hell, if I was in baseball, I'd be a Hall of Fame dad. That's all I'm saying. 3 out of my 4 kids hit me up. Shout out to them. And I'm really happy that the adult texted me. One of my kids is an adult, and she hit me up. She was the first one, so shout out to her. Connor Formia says, I'm excited to watch this. The UFL championship is going on right now, but right when it finishes, I'll have to binge this. I'll have this to binge. Happy Father's Day, Rico. Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to give you guys content. I'm working hard every day. I kind of relaxed all day, hung out with the beautiful Kim Jones, went out to dinner, got my Father's Day dinner. We went to Culver's. We had burgers. I ate 3 of them. 3 double burgers, babe? I'm not exaggerating. I ate 3 double butter burger deluxe with lettuce, tomato, mayo, and onion, and with cheese. It was not a healthy dinner, and it was 6 patties. It was insane, bro. It was not intentional. They gave me too many burgers, and I didn't want to give them back, so I ate them all. Shout out to Lewis Henton. And Donovan Reed says, how are you doing, Rico? Keep doing your thing. I'm waiting for you to lie, but you ain't lied yet. Hey, man, I wake up every morning, and of all the languages in the world to speak, I choose to speak facts. That's all there is to it. I ain't got to lie. Carla Jenkins says, question, is Tony Sanchez at New Mexico State replacing Jerry Kill? That is correct, Carla. Jerry Kill is now on staff at Vanderbilt. He resigned due to health reasons again. Jerry Kill resigns a lot due to health reasons. Shout out to Carla Jenkins. She's been in the comments lately on YouTube. I do see them. I do appreciate the activity, the impressions, the interactions. Apparently, I'm fishing for clicks. I appreciate you guys for watching the content and getting it done. Let me get back to this list. Number 9 is Kenny Burns. It might be a little confusing that Kenny Burns is at 59. He's the head coach at Kent State. It's unfortunate that last year he had such a terrible showing at Kent State. I love Kenny Burns for who he is and what he represents. Unfortunately, he wasn't put in a very good situation. I'm going to say he's not ready to be a head coach, but I don't want to go there because he's obviously a head coach now. But this is a man who was the running backs coach at Minnesota, doing well. This is an African-American man, and when he gets an opportunity to be a head coach, you do not turn it down. You go after it. So he skips being an offensive coordinator to be a head coach at Kent State. Unfortunately, when he gets there, he's just lost. Well, the head coach left, right? Sean Lewis. He's a little higher on this ranking. Sean Lewis leaves. Your quarterback, Colin Schlee, leaves to UCLA. Your running back leaves to Ball State. Shout out to Quez Cooper. 3 of your wide receivers leave to North Carolina, West Virginia, and Penn State. Shout out to Cephas, Polk, and Tez Walker. Your offensive line coach, OB, leaves for Colorado. Your linemen leave for Colorado, 2 of them. Just anyone that's worth a damn left that team. So he showed up, the cupboard was bare. And it was unfortunate. So the cupboard's bare. There's nobody there, and they have a really bad season. They went 1-11. They ended up starting a 3rd or 4th string quarterback that transferred in from Purdue. They ended up trying their best with what they had, but it didn't look good. And I want to say I want to say that I really like the way he's preparing his program and he's trying to find the right players. Let me say this. Every time I do a high school film review on my channel, on TikTok, and every time I assess a player that I think is worth a damn, I look at their offers and they have a Kent State offer. The coaching staff is offering the right players. They just got to land some. They lost their star defensive tackle, West. He just went to, where'd he go, Indiana? Yeah, he went to Indiana. So they're losing star players going to the highest level. But Kenny Burns himself, I think, is a pretty good coach. He's definitely better than the guys below him on this list. And maybe in the future, every year as we go on, he'll be ahead of some of these other guys. I don't think he's in any danger of getting fired. I can tell you that. I don't think he's in any danger of getting fired. Next is Will Hall at Southern Miss. It might confuse you. How the hell is Southern Miss this high? Well, it's because Will Hall used to be a really good head coach. Before he got to Southern Miss, Will Hall was 31-9 at West Georgia. It's a Division II school, but he was very good at West Georgia. So now you get to Southern Miss, and you're 13-24. And I think they were 3-9 last year. And it looks grim, but it's just because you're missing on certain recruiting hits. Like, you go and sign the best small school quarterback, the Gatorade Player of the Year in your state, in Ty Keys, and he just doesn't work out. He's not very good. So that's what happens. You're not evaluating talent properly. But Will Hall is a good coach. He's not a bad coach. So that's where he goes there. He has success as a head coach. It's just not showing up on Saturdays at the FBS level. I still like Will Hall. It's cool. Brian Newberry. I don't know if there's charts anywhere that really praise Brian Newberry, but they shouldn't. Brian Newberry, the Navy head coach. Navy's always been a decent team. Navy has a really good defense right now. I was looking at them in the American Conference. I like their defensive line as one of the very best in the whole conference. In the American Conference, Navy has one of the top 3 defensive lines. I was just doing assessments on defensive linemen, last week or earlier this week, and they really stuck out to me. So Navy has always had pretty decent players. Remember, Navy's always competitive in the American until last year. Until last year when they went 5-7. But that's because they had Ken Nehemiah Lodo. Sorry, my dog is barking. They had Coach Ken N, and he's been there forever, and he had it all going. And then you fire Coach to hire your defensive coordinator and Brian Newberry, and it's not getting it done. It's not. And he brought in an offensive coordinator from, I think, Kennesaw State. But what I saw from Navy last year, in the very first game in Ireland against Notre Dame, told me this guy's not ready to be a head coach. He did not have his team prepared for that game. They lost by like 40. They were supposed to be competitive defensively. You're the defensive coordinator, and you're losing by like 40. And the year before, Navy's beating people. I think Navy beat Notre Dame in 2022. There's been a huge regression in the product on the field at Navy. And you do need discipline. You do need certain schemes to keep that advantage and stay competitive. And they don't have it. So I don't believe in Brian Newberry. He's down here. He could be lower, but he's not this bad. But I don't believe in him to that extent. Then we got Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer, UAB. Some people don't think he's a good coach. I do. I watch the product on the field. I think Trent Dilfer is great. Offensive mind on point, getting the most out of his players, assessing his talent. It's one of these things where the team was revolting against him before he ever got there. If you guys don't know the story, Bryant Vincent, who's also on this list right above him, Bryant Vincent was the interim head coach in 2022. Right? Their coach retires, their coach essentially retires in August. Brian Vincent has to take over the team right before the season starts, and he becomes the interim head coach, and he does really well. And the players start rocking with him, and they believe in him. Okay? And this is when they had McBride at running back, Dwayne McBride, and they obviously had Jermaine there this year. I'm trying to think of who else they had. But the point I'm trying to make is they had such a good team. Jalen Key at defensive back. They had such a good team and good players that they all wanted Brian Vincent to get the head coaching job. And UAB said, no, we're not giving the interim coach the head coaching job. We're going to bring in Trent Dilfer. He has a bigger name, more appeal, more curb appeal. So once they said they're bringing in Trent Dilfer, fucking Dylan Hopkins, the starting quarterback, jumped in that transfer portal and followed Brian Vincent to New Mexico. Brian Vincent went to go be the offensive coordinator at New Mexico last year, and a bunch of players went. I know another receiver went. It wasn't on the websites, but I saw it in a press release. And none of these recruiting websites know everybody who's transferring. They just don't get it right. The press releases are accurate, and so is my content, obviously. But here's what I'll say. You look at Trent Dilfer, and I see a guy getting the most out of his players. I like him as a head coach. Yes, he only went 4-8. But he lost all his good players. He lost all of his continuity. There's still good players at UAB. They had a player drafted. UAB had players drafted. Not every team in the Power 5 can say that. Yeah, Trent Dilfer's the one. Brian Vincent taking over at ULM. Like I just said, Brian Vincent has experience in the Deep South. He's been down there, been recruiting for a long time. This is a former high school coach. Used to be the high school coach at Spanish Fort in Alabama. Parlayed that into a position at UAB. So he knows the area really well. And if you saw how loyal some of the players were, I mean, they might have had 9 transfers from New Mexico come over to ULM. People following this man. He's a leader. So you have Brian Vincent, now the head coach at ULM, and you might think, oh, there's nothing, that's not a big deal because ULM sucks. I'm not worried about that. I think Brian Vincent knows what he's doing. This is a man who went 7-6 while the head coach in that interim season. I hope he gets his shot. I hope he does well. I'm cool with him. Thomas Hammock, Northern Illinois. Some people believe in him. Some people think he's great. I'm not one of those people. I don't understand it. Yes, they turn out to be okay sometimes. They have a good running back. They're always going to have a good running back because Thomas Hammock used to be a really good running back. If you didn't know that, go look it up. Thomas Hammock was one of the best running backs in Northern Illinois history. And now, he looks overweight now. He's gained some weight. He's an older man. But they do some things well. Unfortunately for him, he lost his running backs coach. And when he lost his running backs coach last year, 2 years ago, when Kenny Burns got hired at Kent State, Kenny Burns went to Kent State after 6 years at Minnesota, or 6 years under P.J. Fleck, I should say, because he was following P.J. Fleck everywhere. Kenny Burns finally gets hired at Kent State. Now he's a head coach in the MAC. Now Minnesota needs a new running backs coach. So they go get the running backs coach from Northern Illinois. And Northern Illinois loses like 6 running backs. 6 running backs. That's nuts. I blame Coach Prime because Coach Prime took Sean Lewis out of Kent State. So if you do the math there, Coach Prime took Sean Lewis out of Kent State. Then Kent State took Kenny Burns out of Minnesota. Then Minnesota takes their running back coach out of Northern Illinois. Then Harrison Whaley goes to Wyoming. We got a running back over here. We got a running back, and everybody leaves. And everybody got mad at me. But it's 6 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon style. And you're left with Thomas Hammock doing his best job at Northern Illinois. It's just not very good. Don't have good quarterback play. Don't have everything they need. I don't see a lot of big names trying to transfer there. I don't even see a lot of players leaving there that are worth a damn. Let me make that very clear. It looks like they're assessing talent incorrectly. Hope they do the best with what they have. Thomas Hammock, he's been getting a pass for a while, and he shouldn't. They started 1-4 last year, ended up doing okay in the season, but it wasn't anything to write home about. So I'm not big on Thomas Hammock. That's just me. Spencer Danielson, Boise State. I ain't mad at him. He got the job everybody wants, but just not a very proven coach. This is a guy. I think he's 34 years old, 35. He went 3-1 last year as the interim head coach. Right? They get rid of Andy Avalos. Remember, Boise State has been pumping out head coaches to feed the Power 5 for 20 years. For 20 years, they've been feeding the Power 5 head coaches. Don't believe me? Go look it up. It's insane. Since like 99. I thought it started with Dennis Erickson. I might be wrong. Is it Erickson? Dennis Erickson. Arizona State. Dan Hawkins. I'm missing one in there. I'm missing one. Houston Nutt. Dan Hawkins. What's his name at Washington? Peterson. And then obviously Harsin at Auburn. It's nuts, guys. So Now you have a young kid who was your defensive coordinator, been working on the defense for a while. He's been there a lot of years. He's a Boise State guy, but not proven at all. Spencer Danielson did well, and they're going to do good this season. Let me be very clear. He's way down here at 53, but that's just because he's not proven as a coach. But they're going to be good. Don't you get that shit twisted at all. Boise State's a good team. He's just individually not as proven as these other head coaches. Nah, it's not close. That's where he's at. As a matter of fact, I'm being very, very, courteous to him, putting him ahead of some other coaches that have been coaching for a while. Yep. It's all good. That's where he goes. Speaking of coaching for a while, Joe Moorhead at Akron. This doesn't look like it's working out for him. If you don't know Joe Moorhead, he was a beast of a coach at Fordham from 2012 to 2015. He was a good coach there. And I thought he did well. Then he went to Mississippi State, 2 years, did fine. You get to Akron, oh boy. And he's using the transfer portal. Go and look. Akron pulled in like 20, 30 transfers 2 years ago. None of it panned out. Well, I shouldn't say none of it. Some of it panned out. You got Adams at wide receiver. He's from LSU. You got Josiah Gathings. He just left, though. I think he just went to UConn. So you have some players at Akron. They got a running back, came over from Florida, right? You got a quarterback came in from Undercuffler. Don't talk about Undercuffler, their backup quarterback. And DJ Irons from the JUCO ranks. I can tell you all about Akron if you want to know. We bet on them as MVPs. If you're not an MVP, let me tell you, go to Patreon, go to YouTube, join the channel, become a member. If you go to Patreon, search RicoKnows, become a member. You will learn about these teams in depth. You will learn how to gamble on these teams and what to bet on. And the MVPs know all about Undercuffler and Akron's ineptitude. Joe Moorhead needs to win. That's it. And he's not winning right now. And it's only a matter of time, right? 2 seasons. I think he's 4-20. That's crazy. 4-20. That's 2-12 back-to-back, or 2-10. That doesn't get it done. Even at Akron, you'll get fired. Lance Taylor. I like Lance Taylor, man. He's a young stud of a coach, up-and-coming coach. Not a lot of people believe in him. But for me, when you watch Western Michigan football, it can be pretty good. It can be pretty good. The only issue with Lance Taylor is he's an NFL guy. He's an NFL guy who moved down, so he's still learning the college schedule. When I say schedule, I'm referring to the offseason, the battle rhythm. When do we recruit? When do we send offers? When do we send graphics? When do we contact people? When do we lift weights? When do we implement the playbook? When do we do that? But they got a player in Buckley at running back. They found a gem, and they're hanging on to him. They got him again. He just needs to stay out of, injury stuff. But Western Michigan looks like a hell of a team. They did get the cupboard raided from them. Raided. Minnesota took everything from them. And they still were okay. But it's 4-8. It's 4-8. It's not good. You got to do better. So there's Lance Taylor at 51. At 50, give me the former quarterback Michael Desmarais at Louisiana. That's Maru with an X spelled in it. You knew that, babe? Anyways, I was talking to a woman, not sitting here. But, this is a guy who got the job after Billy Napier left. And Billy Napier did not leave that cupboard bare, but he did take some of the star players with him. Man, I love Louisiana's caliber of football last year. They still only went 6-7. That's back-to-back years, 6-7. And I'm telling you, Louisiana plays good football. They play really good football. If you go watch the tape, high-quality football. But you go and lose your quarterback. You transferred to Houston. You go and lose some of your star players in the transfer portal back-to-back years. It's not going to work out for you. But I think that Michael Desmarais is a good coach. We'll see what happens. I still think they're one bad year away from him getting fired. I do. Jeff Choate, where's he at? He's at Nevada. Oh, let's go to the chat. That's my fault. Give me a second here. I'll pull up the chat. If you got questions, put it up, and we'll talk. Derek Newcomer, what up? Derek Newcomer says, Happy Father's Day, Rico. Which group of 5 coaches could you see the biggest jump in your opinion? The biggest jump, in my opinion, in my assessment, Kenny Burns can move way up if he has a decent year. Trent Dilfer can move up. He's going to have Zeno back. So that's 2 of them. And then obviously Spencer Danielson, if they have a really quality year and they keep recruiting right, he's going to move way up the chart. Obviously, Gerard Parker at Troy has an opportunity to impress me beyond what you see here. Hawaii's slated to have a decent season, especially in the Mountain West that doesn't feel too top heavy, although it's got some really good teams. There's some other guys up here that I really like. I think Del McGee has a chance to move up just by the way he runs operations. And there's other names I don't want to scroll and show you yet because I don't want to give away the rankings. But yeah, those are the guys that I feel like they're moving up. Tim Albin is on the list. He'll be coming up. He's a very good coach, so he'd be much higher on the list. Where is Jim McElwain ranked? Jim McElwain is coming. He is an accomplished coach. He's been at different levels. So for me, Jim McElwain, if I can show you, some of these guys have never coached. It's their first time coaching. They're underwhelming at coaching. Where we're at right now, Jim McElwain is far more experienced than these guys. So you got to respect a coach's acumen and experience when you're doing this type of assessment. So no, Jim McElwain wouldn't be here right now. Happy Father's Day, Rico. Thank you so much, Quad Life. Usually when I'm doing the show, I'll show you guys the chat on the screen, but I'm trying to keep the chart where it's at, so I apologize. Shout out to all the people watching on TikTok. Move over to YouTube if you want to join the conversation. Shout out to you guys. I'm going to get back to this list, though. There are a lot of people to talk about. Next up, you guys might not know Jeff Schote. Nevada sucks. I get it. Nobody thinks Nevada's any good, but Jeff Schote was a great coach in the Big Sky Conference at the FCS level. This is a man who took Montana State to the FCS semifinals, okay? Took them to the semifinals. He's a good coach. He's having a difficult situation at Nevada because Nevada's not easy, bro. This is a man who spent 3 seasons at Texas as a defensive coordinator. I just hope he figures it out. Nevada's a tough place to coach in. He's there. Let's see what happens. Their previous coach was a linebackers coach at Oregon, so he brought in a bunch of Oregon guys he knew. Now, I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing well in the transfer portal. Let me say this. They're like last chance you in the transfer portal. They're signing guys who are a little better than La Tech's, I'll tell you that, so I hope they work out for them. Next on the list is Pete Lembo. Pete Lembo at Buffalo. Not a lot of people know Pete, and that kind of bugs me that people aren't aware of certain coaches, but Pete Lembo he's been in the MAC before. He was the head coach at Ball State for a couple of years. I want to say like 4 years. And he was above 500. So he's not bad. Above 500. Yes, he was at South Carolina on the coaching staff with Shane Beamer and the boys. But I like Pete Lembo. I don't know what they're going to do at Buffalo. They did get their star linebacker back just a couple days ago in Dolak, but I don't know what's going to happen at Buffalo. I just think you guys should know how good Pete Lembo is because he's coached before in the MAC. And that goes a long way with me, especially if you were able to keep your job for 4 years in the MAC. That's better than anything some of these other MAC coaches are doing that might not keep the job for 4 years. It's kind of how I rank him. So it's nice to see him back. He knows the footprint. He knows the neighborhood well. He's a good coach. Kevin Wilson. Kevin Wilson at Tulsa, very disappointed in last year, and it's going to be difficult to be any good. So Tulsa, 4-8 last year. You got to know who Kevin Wilson is, though. He just left Ohio State as the offensive coordinator. Think of Ohio State's offense. He was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He was one of them. Before that, he was the Indiana head coach. That's not good. But before that, this man was the quarterback and offensive coach for Oklahoma. And that's where this hiring makes sense. He's going back to Tulsa, back to a state where he knows everything. He has all the right pipelines and the right coaching, and he gets all the right players, and he's just a quarterback guru. And they really figured it out, man. They have a decent quarterback. They got one coming in from Utah State that's very comparable to what they have on their roster already. I like both the quarterbacks at Tulsa. The only thing that's going to be wrong with Tulsa this year is they lost their whole wide receiver core. Their best wide receivers all transferred to Houston. That's what happened. Houston lost all their receivers to Miami and Texas. Houston said, we need new wide receivers. Let's go get those Tulsa kids. They're pretty good. And they are. And they went and got the Tulsa leading receiver and second leading receiver. And now Tulsa's saying, okay, well, what do we got to do? Well, you got to go down to South Oak Cliff High or some shit. You got to go to, North Shore and find somebody. I don't know what Tulsa's doing. Maybe they go to Bixby. I know they moved one of the Presley brothers to wide receiver. So I like Kevin Wilson. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I don't want to say legendary because he's never really done anything at the head coaching level, but he's been around for a long time, and he's a known commodity in the coaching world. So that's pretty good. Next coach, Trent Bray, Oregon State. You know, I'm leaving Trent Bray here. I really don't care what anybody thinks of it, whether you think he should be higher or lower. Trent Bray can't go any higher for me. This is a guy who was the defensive coordinator at Oregon State. They lose their head coach. They scramble, don't look very far, and they hire one of their own guys. Congrats. But he's not really anything more than any of the other coaches. He's a first-year guy. He's never been a head coach. And it just so happens Oregon State's now considered a Group of 5 school. It's his alma mater. It is what it is. But that's how I feel about Trent Bray. He's just a guy. He's just the guy they picked to do the job. And I hope he does it well. But right now, I can't rank him ahead of anybody. Nah, I can't do that. I'm just letting you know. Okay? Next coach on the list, Del McGee. Del McGee in his first year at Georgia State, over 30 transfers. If nobody's talking about it, I will. Over 30 transfers coming in from Georgia, absolutely killing it in the transfer portal. Now, they have to, he says they're going to do things the Georgia way. He's emulating Georgia in every way possible. That's incredible. I hope you get the results that Georgia had. The problem they're going to have is their quarterback is a Georgia Tech transfer. Losing Granger hurts to graduation, Darren Granger, obviously in the NFL. Losing your star running back, and don't get me wrong, they didn't just lose their star running back to Missouri. They lost their backup running back, Casey Adams. He left. I think he went to South Carolina State. I think he just said, the hell with the FBS. I'm out of here, if I remember correctly. And then their third-string running back is Freddie Brock. Freddie Brock is my guy. That's a main guy. He tore it up in the bowl game. Please believe in Georgia State and what they're building. They do have a lot of depth that they just gained through the transfer portal. 30 new transfers feels like, man, it feels like an embarrassment of riches. I like Del McGee a lot. I like the coaches he hired in the Georgia area. It's like a pipeline to Atlanta schools, to the southwest of Georgia. If you're not familiar, that's a hotbed of great talent. It just looks like they're doing it right. So I'm excited for Georgia State and where they're headed. But as of right now, I have to rank Del McGee at 45. That's what I have to do, which is pretty remarkable, seeing as he's never coached a game, and I have him at 45. Don Brown. You guys know Don Brown. That's the UMass head coach, the doctor of the blitz. Don Brown used to be the defensive coordinator at Arizona, and he is struggling to win games at UMass. I got it. But I'm telling you, UMass was once 3-37 over a 4-year stretch. Okay? Last year alone, they won 3 games. Think about that again. They won 3 games in 4 years, and last year they won 3 games. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it is great on Don Brown's part. Back in 2006, Don Brown led UMass to the FCS title game. Back when they were FCS. He's a good coach. He's old, but he's great. I am in contact with UMass coaching staff daily on Twitter. I talk to the head NIL guy for them as well. I can push players their way. I have, and I will continue to do so because I believe in what they're trying to build there. Shout out to UMass. Shout out to Don Brown. I think he's one of the better coaches. And then we have Mike McIntyre, FIU. Some people think he should be higher. I don't, just because he's been terrible at FIU. But this is the former National Coach of the Year when he was at Colorado. He did some amazing things. But there's some coaches ahead of him that have done amazing things. But this is the first one where you're like, okay, this is a guy that once went 10-4 in the Pac-12, 8-1 in the Pac-12, 10-4 overall back in 2016. This is a great coach. But he hasn't been to a bowl game or won more than 2 conference games. Yeah, since he's been a head coach at FIU. Once again, hasn't won more than 2 conference games And they play in Conference USA. And when you look at the team, it's bad. Now, Keontae Jenkins at quarterback, they just started him as a redshirt freshman last year. Took over for Grayson James. James just transferred to Boston College. There's a chance that FIU is going to have some players. They lost their star receiver. He just transferred to Notre Dame. They've lost great defensive players over the last couple years. They lost Rivaldo Fairweather at tight end to Auburn 2 years ago. They've been losing good pieces. It's Florida, bro. Find more. Stop coming up with excuses. Find better players. Mike McIntyre, you're at 43. 42, Butch Jones, Arkansas State. What do you want me to say? He saved his job by filing Jalen Rayner. That's what he did. If you don't know the story, Butch Jones used to be the head coach at Tennessee. Butch Jones used to be a phenomenal coach. I'm trying to find my notes. I don't need the notes. I'm telling you, they didn't win more than like 3 games back-to-back years. And then last year, they have a good season, but he's still 11-26 in the last 3 seasons. Okay? 11-26 in the last 3 seasons, despite going to a bowl game. This is a guy who used to coach at Cincinnati, Central Michigan, and Tennessee. They are going to be as good as Jalen Rayner lets them be. And that's their quarterback they discovered last year. Thank God they hit on him. Athletic quarterback. I made a video about him in September before anybody because I watched week 1. Week 1, week 2, somewhere around there. I'm watching film, and I get to Arkansas State, and I'm like, guys, you don't want to watch every game. I watch every FBS game. I'm watching my film, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this, and I couldn't remember. It was Monday or Tuesday. And I'm watching, and I go, oh, my God, these guys suck. I'm watching, and I go, wait, who's that? I rewind it. I look back. How the hell did they get this kid? North Carolina kid? What's going on? I just start freaking out like I just discovered fucking, Michael Vick. And then they stopped letting him run the rock, only having him throw, and made him one-dimensional. It's okay. Butch Jones, very underwhelming. Yes, he's been around a long time, but that Arkansas State job, he was on the hot seat. He was on the hot seat, and he's lucky he didn't lose it, and it's because Arkansas State doesn't care. And speaking of not caring, there's Mike New at Ball State. I rank him at 41 because he's been at Ball State for 9 years. They do nothing great. They did win a conference title. They won a conference title in 2020. COVID. They just do nothing remarkable. Their jerseys are awful. I can't watch them. No, it's bad, man, and it's unfortunate because they had Carson Steele a couple years ago. He transfers to UCLA, but even when they got Quez Cooper coming in from Kent State, they didn't look good. So Ball State, Mike New, doesn't really move the meter for me. 9 years at Ball State, just kind of there. Imagine 9 years of collecting checks, bro, and you ain't remarkable at your job at all. Shout out to Mike New. I'm not saying he's bad. And the last one before I go to the chat, Mike Bloomgren at Rice, Mr. 4-4, Mr. 5 wins and go to a bowl game. You can't be mad. Bloomgren has something called APR. It's Rice. It's a high academic institution. If you don't know what APR is, that is academic progress rate. College football teams get a score. A player is worth 2 points. I'm going to explain this to you guys. If you're academically eligible, you score a point. And you're on scholarship, you score a point for your team. If after the football season, you stay and complete your degree, you score another point. Boom. Okay? That's your APR. Every player can score you up to 2 points. Now, if somebody leaves school early to go pros, you don't get that second point. If somebody jumps in the transfer portal, they don't count it against you anymore. They used to. They don't even count it against you. But APR is in every coach's contract, and your rank in APR really matters. Don't talk to me about GPA. When you see a college coach mention GPA, he is purposely trying to get you to ignore the APR ranking. Coach Prime did this the other day. Coach Prime made a video and said, look, we got the highest GPA we ever had in our life. We got school record GPA, 3.17, ... And he started saying all this shit. It made me go look up the rankings for 2024. And sure enough, APR rank for Colorado is 91st in the country. It's terrible. It's terrible. And nobody's mad because they were 104th before Coach Prime got there. So they've actually improved by 10 spots, but they're still some of the worst in America. When you look at other programs, Rice, Minnesota, these teams got it going on. Here, let me tell you something. If there aren't enough bowl eligible teams at the end of the season, what the NCAA does is they look at all 5 and 7 teams with 5 wins, and whoever has the highest APR, they get the bowl bid. So this is why Mike Bloomgren has coached in a bowl game, because Rice is crazy, because they got it going on academically. Now, they just moved to the American Conference last year. They broke even. They went 4-4. It's okay, man. He gets the most out of his players. I like what he's doing. Rice has some good players. They just transferred out of there, though. They had a good defensive back. He just left. They actually had 2 of them. They're both gone. Obviously, they had a draft pick. Colorado didn't have a draft pick. These guys had a McCaffrey get drafted. Shout out to Rice. They've been putting it together pretty decent. Let me go to the chat, and then I'll get back to the rest of it. So we'll go over here. By the way, TikTok, if you have a comment, question, concern, whatever, come to YouTube, drop it in the chat. I'll read it and acknowledge it. But we don't see TikTok comments during the show. Over here, happy Father's Day, Rico. What up, Quad Life? Yeah, thank you to me. I appreciate it. David in Arizona says, hey, Rico, I had a good time watching the fights with you and the MVPs. Did you feel Jedd Fisch will have a tough first year? Shout out to those corner guys that tell you to breathe. Yeah, it was a bad fight experience last night. If you guys weren't watching the fights, yes, I went 7-6 in my picks, but I overthought it and I did not parlay all my locks. All my locks hit, but if I had put that in a parlay, it would have hit and it would have saved the night, and I didn't do it. So the MVPs didn't do it, and that sucks because I wish they would parlay the locks, but then they didn't, and they parlayed something else, and then that missed, and then we did hit a value bet, but then we missed a value bet, and it was just, we couldn't get ahead of ourselves. It was a rough night, and I don't like missing. So I'm glad you enjoyed it for what it is. Is Jedd Fisch going to have a tough first year? Are you talking about at Washington? I don't think he's going to have a tough first year. I think he's an amazing coach. I think you need to be realistic about their expectations. I obviously have a video on Patreon. If you're an MVP, you can go to Patreon or YouTube. I think you're on YouTube as an MVP, right, David? If you go to YouTube and search the 2024 futures bets, search 2024 futures and look for Washington. They're already done, and I did a deep dive on Washington and how many games I expect them to win. Videos made. It's alphabetical by team, so keep scrolling until you see the Washington and the Big Ten. But I feel like Jedd Fisch is a good coach. He'll figure it out. They don't have the same team. They don't have he's lost a ton of guys to the NFL. I want you to think of it as what happened at TCU after they lost their 8 draft picks. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Shout out to Sam Stewart. He says great fights, even though we didn't win them all. Yeah, man, it happens. It happens. Sometimes you win some, you lose some. Let's go back to the list here. I'll get back to the chat. You guys put it in the chat. We'll be fine. Going back to number 39, Scott Loeffler. Now, not a lot of people will agree with this ranking on Scott Loeffler because I have him at 39 ahead of a lot of other good coaches. But Bowling Green, listen to me very carefully. They are trending upward. They are trending upward. I've watched Bowling Green players. I went back and watched one of their star corners just transferred to Maryland. He's that good. All right, cool. What was his damn name? I know his name. Starts with an H. I keep wanting to say Huffy. I know I'm wrong. Was it Hussey? No, that's Florida State. That's terrible. I got too much shit in my head, bro. What I want to tell you is, though, Harold Fanning is the truth. That's their tight end. I think he's an NFL caliber tight end. And I just think that when you look at Bowling Green going 5-3 the last 2 seasons, 5-3 in the MAC, in conference play, 5-3 back-to-back years, I think it's pretty good. You're right behind the perennial powers of Ohio. Miami of Ohio showed up out of nowhere, and Toledo. So there's a three-headed monster that runs the MAC, right? Ohio, Toledo, and Miami of Ohio just showed up. And then right behind them is Bowling Green. So I have to respect that. Shout out to Scott Loeffler. I really appreciate, the way he coaches and what he's getting out of his players. Tim Beck. I wasn't high on Tim Beck before the season. You have to respect the results, but we need to understand that he inherited a roster at Coastal Carolina that was built by Jamie Chadwell. And Jamie Chadwell, I'm going to tell you guys right now, you won't see his name for a while because Jamie Chadwell is him. But you got Tim Beck coming in, an offensive coordinator from Ohio State, from Texas, from North Carolina State, Nebraska. He's coached at all these places as offensive coordinator, shows up to Coastal Carolina and knocks it out the park. Now, they lost Brown at wide receiver. He went ahead and took off and went to South Carolina. So they're going to be missing some weapons. I hope they figure it out. I think the starting quarterback is going to be Vasco, I think. I don't remember. I'll have to go sit down and go over it again. I know the roster. I just don't have it up here in my brain. But Tim Beck had a great first year. You go 8-5 in your first year, that's David Braun status. That's pretty damn good. 8-5 your first year, I got to respect it. Been around for a long time, 8-5 your first year, I'm going to move you up. So there you go, Tim Beck at 38. I respect it. There's Jim McElwain. Somebody, Rico, where's Jim McElwain? Well, there he is, Jim McElwain. Yes, he's 9-15 on the last 2 years. Yes, I know. But first 3 years at Central Michigan, he was 20-13. He has to learn how to navigate in a world of the transfer portal. He has to find better players. I think Bert Emanuel Jr. is the quarterback right now. Doesn't look good. Spring game looked, I'm throwing up in my mouth. But this is a guy who used to be the head coach at Colorado State in Florida. If you were an SEC head coach, even if you weren't good, I think you know how to run the show. I like it. Shout out to McElwain. Good luck. I can't move you any higher. Keep messing up. You're going to move back. Jake Dickert did a decent job. Taking over a job for Nick Rolovich, who had to leave because he refused to get COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccinated. He refused to get COVID vaccinated. He refused to get vaccinated and get the COVID vaccine. Can I talk? Holy smokes. But you're at Washington State, and it's going to be a rough one. Yes, they were ranked at times nationally, but you just lost Cam Ward. You've had some guys leave in the draft. You've been signing guys out of the transfer portal that feel very Cincinnati-esque. And I say that, what I mean is it's like that caliber of player. You get a good player, but it's the guy that kind of left over from all the other Power 5 teams. And granted, they're Group of 5 now, so it might work out. But they lost 7 out of their last 8 last year. The wheels fell off that joint. They lost everywhere. I hope he can right the ship. Let me say this. I went and watched film. They have 2 good quarterbacks. They have some guy named Zevi Ekeris or something, the kid who came over from Brantley, I think. God, he's good, and he's not even starting. I like both the quarterbacks at Washington State a lot. Both their quarterbacks, you will not be disappointed if you're a Washington State fan or if you're just watching. They have 2 quarterbacks worth the damn at Washington State. I really like the team. It's unfortunate. Jake Dickert better get them back on track and figure it out. Next, Charles Huff. I had rumor that he had resigned. I don't know if that's true or not. Charles Huff at Marshall. He might be too high up here. He finds a way to get the job done, but I left him up here this high. I don't really feel like he belongs this high. Marshall finds a way to get it done. They get players drafted. They do things, but I wrote in here, he's been to 3 bowl games at Marshall. 3 for 3. That's all you can ask. But when you start 4-0 and you end the season 6-7, that doesn't look good. You start 4-0 and then you get into conference play and you can't figure it out. That's weird. That's bananas. You got to figure that out, Marshall. Marshall has some of the worst quarterbacks you've ever seen, and they just had one leave the program, right? The kid who just transferred him from Wake Forest, Mitch Griffiths just showed up, and he hit the portal. He showed up out of Wake Forest, former Wake Forest starting quarterback last year. Just showed up, and then he's like, oh, they're not going to start me over Cole Pennington? Yeah, you're starting a legacy quarterback who sucks. You got Braylon Braxton, who just showed up from Tulsa. I like him a lot. But Charles Huff, man, decent coach. 3 bowl games in a row? Yeah, that'll get you ranked up here. Next is Jim Mora Jr. I rock with Jim Mora Jr. UConn. You might not like that 3-9 last year. I don't care. 2022, they went to a bowl game. First time since like 2015. I don't care about 3-9. I watched them dominate the transfer portal this offseason. UConn had won the transfer portal in the spring. Easily top 10 most impactful transfer portal classes in the spring. UConn. They got everything. They got a quarterback. They got running backs. They got wide receivers, offensive linemen, linebackers, defense. They got everything. Yes, they lost Justin Jolly, the stud tight end, to North Carolina State. They lost another good wide receiver. They lost players. I don't care, man. They won in the spring. And Jim Mora Jr., former UCLA head coach, knows how to coach. I like Jim Mora. That's why he's there at 34. Shout out to him. Jeff Monken at 33 at Army. Some people swear by Jeff Monken at Army. They swear he's a great coach. Why? Why? Because he's been there 10 years. He's gotten to 5 bowl games and he's beaten Navy. That's what we're doing. He's beating Navy 6-4. He's beaten Navy 6 times in the last 10 years. Trust me, I've been in the Army for the last 21 years. We do this Army-Navy game thing, and everybody watches it. I don't care. But shout out to Monken. They just joined the American Conference. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. Go out there and get it done. Show me what you got. Monken's a good coach. I got him ranked down here. This is not bad. Some people think it's bad. 33 is bad. I'm sure you got him top 10. I'm sure. It's Army, dude. Clay Helton at Georgia Southern. Clay Helton, former USC head coach, got to Georgia Southern, made them the run and shoot, did some dominant things there. I got a lot of respect for what Clay Helton's doing. He's emulating his brother. If you didn't know, his brother, Tyson Helton, is the head coach at Western Kentucky, and he just became a pass-happy offense. They've got some great players. They're doing some great things. They suck on defense. They lost all their defenders in the transfer portal 2 years ago. Even their best player, Anthony Wilson, he transferred to West Virginia. They lost a kid named, what was his name, Cole? It doesn't matter. They have Amari Arnold. They had White at running back. They have a 2-headed monster at running back, but they're a pass-first team, and Clay Helton's been finding ways to win. It is unfortunate that he's at Georgia Southern, and you're just not going to be as dominant as you envisioned at Georgia Southern. It's just not going to happen. But this is a guy that was at USC. I want to say he was under 500 at USC, so there's limitations to how good he is. They just lost 5 games in a row to end the season. You don't want to end the season like that. But I still like Clay Helton as a head coach. I think he's pretty good. Blake Anderson, Utah State. Utah State, for whatever reason, evaluates talent really well. They go 3 deep at skill positions, and they're all talented. You want to see a good player? Look at their wide receiver, Royal. Look at their running backs. Running back room had 3 guys that were all great. I think most of them came from JUCOs. The quarterbacks, 3 of them, great. Just Utah State, their DBs transferring everywhere, linebackers, they're so good. And it all starts and ends with Blake Anderson, who, by the way, Blake Anderson took Arkansas State to 6 bowl games in 7 years. Okay, 6 bowl games in 7 years at Arkansas State. That's why he's such an accomplished head coach. Then you come over to Utah State and you start rocking it. 2021, when they went 11-3, Utah State was 11-3. I want you to think about that. And then these last 2 years, they've been 6-7. So what? Blake Anderson is good, man. It's a good coach. Almost made top 30. Almost made top 30. Then we'll go to Sean Lewis at 30. Obviously, Sean Lewis, former head coach at Kent State, didn't have a winning record there. Nobody has a winning record at Kent State, but he did well. Parlayed that into the offensive coordinator job at Colorado. Apparently, his offense was too complex for Shedeur Sanders. He could not grasp choice routes. He did not trust his receivers to run choice routes. So he gets fired midseason because they need to simplify the offense for the quarterback. And he says, fine. And he starts interviewing for other jobs, and now he's the San Diego State head coach. And I still think Sean Lewis is a hell of a head coach. I do. And what I've seen in the transfer portal, he's recruiting really well. They have a chance to be pretty decent. They were terrible last year on offense, they'll be fine. Sean Lewis, I probably have him ranked a little too low. He's probably a little higher. He's probably top 20. But I got him 30th. Ricky Rain. Old Dominion. I'm going to go to the chat after this. I think Old Dominion underperforms. But it's because they lose everyone. They lose everyone in the transfer portal. And it's not his fault. So I got a lot of respect for Ricky Rain. Their starting quarterback left last year. He went to Western Michigan, right? The Wyckoff kid, not the Wyckoff kid. What was his name? Tall kid. Fucking statue. Here's what I want to tell you guys about Ricky Rain. 1-11 in 2019. 1-11 in 2019. Did not coach or did not play football in 2020. And then they came back and they went 6-6 in 2 out of the last 3 years. Yeah. You take a team 1-11, not having a football season, and then you go 6-6. And if you want to talk about ODU, their defense, those players are special, man. Those players are good. They got good linebackers. They got good players. I like ODU. Shout out to the Ricky and them boys. All right, we'll go to the chat. Yes. Great fights. Yeah. Happy Father's Day, everyone, from your boy, Willie. What up, Willie Bobo? Shout out to him. Willie Bobo is the one, A1 from day one. So shout out to him. Micah Earwood says Del McGee gets the Group of 5 auto bid within 7 years. 7 years is a long time. Trying to predict auto bids sounds a little facetious. It's a little ridiculous. I don't get to make crazy assessments like that because it gets recorded. I don't think you're right. I don't think if Del McGee is that dominant at Georgia State to get the auto bid, he won't be at Georgia State. If you think Del McGee is leading Georgia State to an undefeated Group of 5 season, he won't be at Georgia State. He'll get hired somewhere else. If he's any good, he's going to get hired within 2 or 3 years at another school. So that is just an absurd thing to say in 7 years. None of these coaches, if they're any good, will be at their school in 7 years. If they are playoff worthy, they will not be at their school in 7 years. They won't. I mean, it's that simple. All the guys at the top of this list will not be at the schools they're coaching at right now. Especially if they're bidding for a damn playoff bid. Somebody else is going to hire them. That's a weird thing to say. All right. Next on the list, Sean Clark, App State. Some of you guys don't know how good Sean Clark is because App State kind of underperforms. They're not consistent. Don't get it twisted, man. He's good. Clark takes them to the Sun Belt Championship game. After having a bad year in 2022. It's cool. Joey Aguilar's a good quarterback. He's been getting developed by his coaches. Yes, App State has been spoiled by some amazing coaches in Drinkowitz and Scott Satterfield. I know that Sean Clark isn't that good. That's why he's at 28. I know he's not that good, but he's still pretty good. I still respect Sean Clark. He's just not Satterfield, Drinkowitz. He's just not on the trajectory to be a Power 5 head coach moving forward. But he's still pretty damn decent. He's still ahead of a lot of these other guys. After that, we got Scotty Walden. Scotty. I'm a huge Scotty Walden fan. Shout out to him. Moving over from Austin Peay, going to UTEP. If you haven't been paying attention to me on Twitter, I am all over UTEP. I'm all over it. They use the transfer portal immensely. They got every good player that they needed to get from Austin Peay. Shout out to Dre McCray being at Texas Tech. No, they got all the right players. They even got some from Eastern Kentucky. They did what they got to do. I really like UTEP. I like what Scotty's building. I hope that UTEP's culture can change, that some of the players, when players from Texas ask me, I can remember there's this guy, Opara. There's a kid named Joseph Opara. He's a defensive back right now. And I remember I did a high school film review on him, and he had no offers. And I said, UTEP, wake up. North Texas, wake up, offer this kid. And that's all I said in the video. And he and I have been talking probably every day. He sends me videos. He says, hey, I finally went to the UTEP camp. Or I went to the SMU camp. I went to this camp, and the UTEP coaches were there. And they hit him up. And they started following him. And it's just nice to see Scotty Walden's staff recognize the right talented players. If I tell you a player is good and he belongs at your school, you better listen. You better listen. I'm batting 1,000. You better listen. And UTEP's doing the damn thing. I love the way they assess their talent. I love what they're building. Scotty Walden is a future great coach. Future great coach. Right now, he's just good, but I think he's a future great coach. Speaking of a future great coach, what up, Major Applewhite? Major Applewhite, South Alabama. You guys don't remember Major Applewhite? Who don't remember Major Applewhite? Starting quarterback at Texas when I was a teenager. Major Applewhite was him, man. This is like Arch Manning coming back to be a head coach. This was the starting quarterback at Texas when I was a teenager, Major Applewhite. Never forgot the name. Been killing it. Remember, he used to coach at Houston. Took them to some bowl games. Back in 2017, 2018. He was doing it. Then he gets on Kane Womack's staff at South Alabama, and he's crushing it. Have you seen South Alabama's offense? Anybody know what they were doing? It's phenomenal. I love everything about their offense. I talk about it all the time to the MVPs. And now, obviously, quarterback graduates. Some of the wide receivers hit the portal. Got it. One goes up to Louisville. Stud. Right? I'm okay. Voicing brothers. South Alabama has talent. And now they got a head coach that I'm pretty excited about. Major Applewhite. He's of the same, cloth as Josh Heupel. As, any of those quarterbacks, any of those great quarterbacks from that generation that are now head coaches, he's of that same cloth. He's not Sonny Cumbie. He don't suck. I'm just letting you know he's a good coach. I'm excited for it. Shout out to Major Applewhite. Put him at 26. 25, Derek Mason. You know Derek Mason. Just took over the Middle Tennessee job. Middle Tennessee State for years upon years. Rick Stockstill was the head coach for 18 years. Took him to 10 bowl games. Rick Stockstill said, enough's enough. I'm retiring. I want to be like RicoKnows. I'm out this joint. So you go and get a guy that knows Tennessee really well. You go and get Derek Mason, former head coach at Vanderbilt. And he coached at Vanderbilt for 6 years. He knows it. Coached there for 6 years. He knows the recruiting, knows the coaches, knows the high schools. Middle Tennessee's got a shot, man. I'm excited about Derek Mason as a head coach. Chris Crichton. Chris Crichton at EMU, some people might think very highly of him. You might have him higher because of the results. I've actually talked to his players. Remember that publicity stunt Chris Crichton did where he showed one of the linemen giving up his scholarship to give it to a walk-on who couldn't afford to be at school anymore and was going to have to quit the team. So he gave up his scholarship to the walk-on. It was all over all the recruiting websites. It was all over ESPN. Everybody talked about this incredible job and this incredible deed, this incredible act of kindness. And I was like, this is bullshit. All Chris Crichton has to do is sign one less kid out of high school and give the walk-on a scholarship. And he won't have to quit the team. The walk-on, by the way, it was a starter. So I made the story. I put the story out. I made my video. And I even showed where the walk-on didn't really need the scholarship. All his brothers go to college on athletic scholarships. His parents owned a business. I even pulled up the house on Zillow. I did some real shit. And people didn't like it. I put it in a TikTok video. And instead of getting mad, the young man, the offensive lineman, wrote to me in a DM and was like, hey, Mr. Rico, I understand what you're doing. Could you please not put my parents' house on the internet? I'm like, it's on the internet. Where do you think I got it from? They got a nice house. They ain't struggling. They drive nice cars. They live a good life. Their kid can go to school and get some student loans. He don't need to quit the team. But the coach made it a chance. He did this publicity stunt to give him some shine. And I said, hey, man, look, just tell me why Chris Crichton didn't put you on scholarship. He could have solved all this himself. Now he's got a starting offensive lineman in his senior year giving up his scholarship to give it to you. What are we doing? He's like, if I can talk to you in confidence, I would just like to say you're right. And nobody wanted that story to be public. But Coach asked for cameras to be there, and it became a big publicity stunt. And we don't agree with it. That's what he said to me. He said, but could you please not make a video about it? I said, sure. And the only reason I'm talking about it now is because the young man has since transferred to Southern Miss, who gave him a scholarship after last year. And I wrote to him on Twitter. I said, congrats on finding a coaching staff that believes in you enough to give you a scholarship. And he gave me a thumbs up. So I'm letting you know, I don't like Chris Creighton in the way he carries himself. Now, that being said, 6 bowl games, last 8 years. Results are there. Good coach. Gets results. I want you to think about East Carolina before 2010. Because Chris Creighton's been there 14 years now. Before 2010, East Carolina, 1 bowl game. Laughing stock of the MAC. 1 bowl game before 2010. Now, they've done 6 in the last 8 years. They're not getting rid of Chris Creighton. He's a cash cow, and he's doing great things. So shout out to him. The players don't really rock with him. Some do, but the ones I've talked to don't. Here we go. Tyson Helton, Western Kentucky. Tyson Helton, great coach. Great coach. A mastermind. A disciple of the Braun brothers. A disciple of this passing offense that'll get 5,000 yards in a season. Shout out to Tyson Helton. He's the reason Western Kentucky throws so much. He's the reason a lot of people throw so damn much. He is 4-1 in bowl games. He's everything, man. I like him a lot. 40-26 overall since he's been a head coach. Good stud dude. 28-11 in the Conference USA. I like Tyson Helton a lot. He should probably get a Power 5 offer, but they probably look at him like he's a gimmick. They look at him like he's a gimmick, and I don't think any Power 5 teams want that offensive scheme in their school. It's that Mike Leach shit. It's that crazy air raid offense. But here's the thing. Power 5 coaching staffs do not hire Group of 5 head coaches. These head coaches I'm showing you are not candidates for Power 5 schools. Nope, they're candidates for Power 5 coordinator positions for sure. But they don't want to hire these guys as head coaches. Power 5, if they're hiring a head coach, it's going to be from another Power 5 school. It's going to be from another coordinator at a Power 5 school or a retread. And lately, it's been position coaches from Power 5 schools. They are not going to the Group of 5 to get their head coaches. Very rarely. It's not happening. And you're going to see some great coaches just getting ignored because of it. It's a shame. And the only ones that do get hired are guys like Hugh Freeze, a retread who was already at that echelon. You're not going to find too many Troy Taylors moving up. It's very rare. So I study it. It's very rare. You'll find examples. It's not enough. Number 22, Ryan Silverfield, Memphis. Let me say this. I love Memphis this upcoming season. I think Memphis is slated to have an amazing year. Their players are great. But Ryan Silverfield has done nothing to warrant being any higher on this list. Obviously, he had big shoes to fill when Norvell left for Florida State. And they won 10 games last year. They're studs. But there are still holes in the way he does things. There's still concern for Memphis that they're only recruiting offensive players and no defensive players. There's a problem there, but I like Silverfield. He gets results. You win 10 games, you're not going to be any lower on this list. I really appreciate him as a coach. There's better coaches, but he's here, and I respect it. Number 21, just got to the Group of 5, and that's Eric Morris, North Texas. A lot of people don't know how good Eric Morris is because they don't understand North Texas football. They don't understand his track record, if you will. When he was at UIW, Incarnate Word, he was an amazing coach, got them to the FCS playoffs twice. He's the guy who coached Cam Ward at the FCS level, went to Washington State to be the offensive coordinator with Cam Ward, okay, and did great things there. Then North Texas realized, oh man, we want to hire that guy, be our head coach. He shows up to North Texas last year and just had a tremendous season offensively. Needs to figure the rest out, but this is a very good coach schematically. Eric Morris is very good schematically. Their offensive lineman left, went to go start at Oklahoma. The running backs, if you look at it, North Texas had transfer running backs that'll be starting at JMU and South Carolina next year. Will be in there 2 deep. Their wide receiver left to go be a part of, I think, Kentucky. Like, they're just loaded. North Texas, the year before that, was loaded with players going to Ole Miss, Auburn. Those are the big ones. Auburn, you had Deshaun Gaddy. Oh, Arkansas, right? You had your tight end go to Arkansas. You had your star linebacker, Nixon, went to Auburn. There's a lot of names up there for me. Varkey's Gums, right? Arkansas, that's who I was thinking of. But North Texas is so good. They have such fertile recruiting grounds, and I think Eric Morris is going to shine while he's there. He just has to keep doing the damn thing. He's going to be well. This is a Mike Leach disciple. Okay, he's from the Mike Leach tree. So Eric Morris knows what he's doing when it comes to airing out the rock and being great. Number 20 might surprise some of you. New Mexico. Bronco Mendenhall. Bronco Mendenhall used to be a very successful coach. So some of you might be like, yo, New Mexico, there's no way they have a top 20 coach. There's just no way. Not among all these names. I'm thinking I'm underrating him. But I got to put him there because that's where the team's going to kind of perform, and he's been away from the game for a while. But this is a head coach from BYU, from Virginia, and he's coming back after 2 seasons of not coaching. But if you know his record, I want to say it's 135 and 81. 135 wins, 81 losses. That's a great record in 17 FBS seasons. You got to respect that. I should probably rank him higher. But look, he's behind a legend in Casey Keller. Who the hell do I have in my top 20? That's what you guys are probably wondering. Who the hell does Rico have in the top 20 if Bronco Mendenhall's up here at 20 and Casey Keller's at 19? Sam Houston. Y'all don't know. I'll do Casey Keller, then go back to the chat. Shout out to TikTok. If you got a question, comment, concern, come over to YouTube, drop it in the chat. I will get to it. But I want to talk about Casey Keller. The wheels fell off last year, so it didn't look good. Casey Keller, Sam Houston, it was a bad year. They went, they couldn't score. They couldn't score. When we bet on them, they couldn't score to save their life. Their offense was the worst. Their defense was great. And this was a stunt they pulled where they redshirted every starter in their final year at the FCS level. This was 2 years ago. So they were supposed to show up a well-oiled machine with these guys with all this eligibility. And unfortunately, I think that year of only playing 4 games and redshirting everybody, it really didn't pay off. And they played terrible. So I hope they can figure it out. They definitely sign a lot of the good players. But, you know, I'm going to say something that sounds kind of crazy. When you lose a player like Cam Alexander was at Sam Houston, transferred down to UTSA, played out of his mind, and now he's at Oregon. You can't lose players like that. You got to keep them and develop them and keep them on your team. You want to know why UTSA was so great? They kept their nucleus of great players, 2 wide receivers, an all-time great quarterback, Kavorian Barnes at running back. They have 3 great running backs, right? When you can keep your team together, you will develop into greatness. Sam Houston didn't quite do that. And their quarterbacks have been gross. Now, I think Grant Gunnell's going to start this year, so we'll see what happens. But Casey Keller as a coach, it's a national championship coach at the FCS level. This is a good coach, man. A good coach. I like him a lot. That's a winning coach right there. Got to get the most out of your team. Let me go to the chat here. Rico, do you think Bronco Mendenhall will have one of the quickest turnarounds in New Mexico? Well, I just talked about him. I don't think he's going to have a quick turnaround in New Mexico at all. I think he's got a daunting task at New Mexico. With the transfer portal era, I don't see how he turns it around. I think you're just a feeder program for Power 5 schools, and you have to acknowledge that, kind of like Kenny Burns did the other day, and you just have to say that's who we are. We're here to prepare you to transfer to the next school. If you can get kids to buy in on that, maybe you'll get some superior players. But it's going to be a daunting task for him. I think he's an amazing coach. We'll see what happens. I think he's a good coach. The problem is New Mexico doesn't have fertile recruiting grounds. There aren't good players growing up and playing in New Mexico. I mean, the best player I've seen coming out of New Mexico is Mason Poza, and he just committed to Wisconsin. And that kid's a miracle. Kid's a miracle. He's a 3-time state champ in wrestling. And their last time they had a 3-time state champ that played football, he's now the quarterback at Vandy, right? So it's a damn shame they can't keep guys in state. And there isn't enough cities in New Mexico to warrant anybody being that good. All right, so that's that. I apologize. Coming up on the top 20, let's go. Jay Norvell at Colorado State is at 18. You might not like Jay Norvell. You may think he's not a great coach. Jay Norvell is great. Jay Norvell has developed some amazing players. If you go back and you look at what Jay Norvell did at Nevada, in some of those rooms, those wide receiver rooms, you'd be thoroughly impressed with Jay Norvell if you studied it. I've studied it, okay? We're talking about a 5-year stint at Nevada with 4 straight bowl games. They were great. They had a wide receiver room comparable to an NFL wide receiver room. Romeo Doubs, Torrey Horton, both NFL guys. Some guy, he's on Jacksonville right now, just out of San Jose State. Sheesh, forgot his name. They had 3 NFL guys. And it's just, I like Norvell. I hope he does well. He's got his quarterback. He's got Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, BFN. I like Norvell a lot. We'll see what happens. He's got good defensive backs that all return this year. They got a good team. Colorado State's going to be one of the best 4 teams in the Mountain West for sure. One of the best 3 offenses. I really like Colorado State, and I like Jay Norvell as a coach. Alex Golesh, hey, 1 year is all it takes to get in my top 17. I saw enough. I was watching South Florida last year, screaming up and down about Alex Golesh. This guy, former offensive coordinator, left Tennessee, finally gets the reins, shows up to South Florida. Do you know how bad South Florida was? South Florida was so bad. They were 4-29 the last 3 years before he showed up. 4-29, 3 years before you get there. For 3 years in a row, they were gross. And I'm talking about that 1-11 team the year right before he showed up. And he didn't get a bunch of transfer portal players. He didn't bring in 30, 40 guys. And he got them to a bowl game. They went 7-6. And he lost Jimmy, I'm so fast, I'm going to Colorado. He lost Xavier Weaver, Mr. Wannabe NFL. He lost all kinds of players. It didn't matter. That dude is him. This is a 39-year-old in Alex Golesh. I think he's the future. He's out of the Matt Campbell coaching tree, out of Josh Heupel's coaching tree. So he's going to be one of those guys who manipulates hashes. You found a quarterback in Byron Brown that was so good Jerry Bohannon had to hit the portal and get the hell out of town. Byron Brown is great. Their team is good. And you survived losing guys like Batty. It's unfortunate he'll never play again. But that's where I feel about Alex Golesh. And talk about one-year miracle workers, G.J. Kinney right here. G.J. Kinney at 16, I was getting a little upset with what he was doing this offseason, losing certain players. But after talking to the players again and again and again, and I've talked to a lot of them, they feel like they got a shot. They have a 3-headed monster at running back. They have Ishmael Mahdi, who's an NFL running back, 1,300-yard rusher last year. They have assessed their talent accurately. All their wide receivers look the same, though. They have 3 small-ass little white dude wide receivers, Donnelly, Sparks, Bo Sparks, and Joey Hobart's son. The Hobart, Sparks, and Donnelly are 3 white dudes faster than anybody you know. White Lightning, 4.3 40s, running 10 400 meters, whatever they can do. These guys are amazing. I really like Texas State's wide receiver core. It's going to embarrass teams. It's going to scare them. Their team speed is real. I told you guys they would have the best season in school history last year. They beat Baylor in week 1 the way I predicted. I really believe in Texas State and G.J. Kinney. This is a man who was coaching at Incarnate Word after Eric Morris left. So remember, Eric Morris is dominating at Incarnate Word. He leaves to go to Washington State. Fills in G.J. Kinney, and he starts doing the damn thing. G.J. Kinney used to play quarterback at Texas, never really saw the field. Transferred up to Tulsa, ended up playing, and then fringe NFL guy. I think he moved to defensive back for the Eagles for a little bit. But G.J. Kinney, seen enough football to know what the hell he's doing. He's, in his limited time as a head coach, has been so dominant and so good. It's just, to me, he reminds me a lot of Lane Kiffin. He's just bringing in guys, doesn't care about you individually, cares about his 85. So he's bringing in the best guys to improve his 85. His 85 scholarship players, getting the best ones he can. He does not care if you get on the field or not, does not care about your career. That's not important to him. He's just bringing in more players, Let's figure it out. So I'm excited. I think Jordan McLeod just transferred in, the quarterback from JMU, former Arizona quarterback, and R.J. Martinez just transferred in from Baylor, former NAU quarterback, a Texas kid. Remember, they're trying to take back Texas. I'm all about G.J. Kinney. Shout out to him. Another Texas guy, Tom Herman. Tom Herman, former amazing coach at Houston, got a raw deal at Texas, and now he's at FAU. Remember, he was 22-4 when he was at Houston back in the day, doing amazing things. Goes to Texas, he was good. Not good enough, apparently. They fired him for Sarkisian, and not even after a huge drop-off. It wasn't terrible. Go look at the records. It wasn't bad. But he's now at FAU, and the cupboard's bare at FAU. He brought in some guys that he knows and trusts. He brought in Casey Thompson. He gets injured. His quarterback was Daniel Richardson. He's like a skinny fat guy, and you don't even know why he's the starting quarterback. Well, he just left, right? Former Central Michigan starter. You lose your star wide receiver in Jamal Edrin to Purdue. You lose another one in LeJonte Wester to Colorado. You lose Wester's brother at linebacker. You're losing guys left and right. Jesus, cheese and rice. Tom Herman's still a great coach. Still a good coach, accomplished in his career. I believe in Tom Herman. I think he's special, so I have him at 15. Don't let all the movement fool you. They'll figure it out. Is FAU going to be great the way it was when Lane Kiffin was there? Probably not. I don't know if he's going to find a Devin Singletary. I don't know if Tom Herman is Lane Kiffin. I can tell you he's not. But Tom Herman's still a good coach. And if you're a group of 5 team, you should be grateful to have Tom Herman. Real talk. Next coach, Chuck Martin, a little high for my take, but I had to put him here because I respect the results, right? 11 years at Miami of Ohio. If you've been at a school for 11 years, you've built up enough rapport with that staff and with the administration that your job's not in jeopardy. Oh, by the way, you went and won the MAC over Toledo last year. This is a guy that has been to 3 straight bowl games, and I think he's been to 5 overall. But don't get it twisted. Chuck Martin is a great coach, up and coming, and they're developing defenders, man. They're developing players on the defensive side of the ball. I appreciate that. They knocked it out the park with the Gage Larvadain transfer coming in, although he got injured. I think Gabbert's back again. As long as he's not injured, he's a good quarterback. Blaine Gabbert's little brother. He's a good quarterback, so we'll see what happens with Miami of Ohio. 13, Jason Candle. Been in the rumor for a while now that he's going to get hired on another job somewhere, and it just hasn't happened. He is MAC football. 2 conference titles, been coach of the year twice, and that's in 8 years. Never been under 500, and they've won 11 games twice at Toledo. Never been under 500. That's a winner, bro. That's a winner. I feel terrible that I even put him behind Mike Houston. Probably shouldn't have done that. Jason Candle probably deserves to be ahead of Mike Houston. But I don't blame Mike Houston for anything that's going wrong at ECU. So go figure. I really like Mike Houston. So you know what? It's my list. It's my list. I'll put him where I want. I like Mike Houston a lot. Team sucks, but Mike Houston's a good coach. So Jason Candle at 13, I really respect him. Mike Houston, for whatever reason, 6 years with ECU, can't get on his feet. Can't get on his feet, and he was great at the FCS level. He was great before he got to ECU, so I still believe in him as a coach. I want to tell you, it hurts to see a team that had Keaton Mitchell at running back, and Keaton Mitchell left school 2 years early. They had an all-time great coach, quarterback in Ayers, Holton Ayers, and he graduates. They lose 2 1,000-yard receivers, and they're gone. Like, the team was loaded to the gills 2 years ago, and then they're not. That's just the cycle of taking a class that's really good and graduating them, and then you need to find replacements, and they haven't found the replacements. So while ECU looks bad with the roster management, Mike Houston has always been a good coach and a successful one. So shout out to Mike Houston. I really like him. So we're almost to the top 10 here. We have Ken Niumatalolo, the new head coach at San Jose State, the long tenured coach at Navy, spent a couple years helping the leadership at UCLA. I like Ken a lot. Coach Ken is real. He's a nice guy. He's a Christian man, I believe. And he and his wife are just so sweet, and they're doing this thing. I hope they make San Jose State relevant. Again, they've always been pretty good. Shout out to Brett Brennan, who just left to go be the Arizona head coach. But Ken is good, man. And one of the most successful coaches in the group of five for a long time. So for me to rank him here hurts me, but I had to do it. I can't go any higher. Shout out to him. He hasn't been coaching for a little bit, and, you know, the cupboard ran a little dry towards the end there. But this is a man, 109 and 83 as a coach. I was trying to find my notes on him because I wanted to see. It was 16 years at Navy is what I wrote. 16 years. Congratulations, man. Let's see how long you can last at San Jose State. That'll be cool. Now, top 10, let me go back and check the chat, and then we'll go to the top 10. Once again, YouTube, if you're watching the show, move over to TikTok. Watching the show, move over to YouTube. Put it in the comments. We'll get to it. Let's see what we have here. Do you think FSU will end up leaving the ACC in the next 2 seasons, and who will take their place if they do leave? So Logan Arline, I talked about this at length last year and the year before, and I told everybody they're not leaving. It's okay, sweetie. There's your mom. Sorry about that, y'all. They're not leaving the ACC anytime soon. They have to finish out probably the next 2 years before the grant of rights is lifted. Nobody's going to sue to get out. It's all wasted energy. Anybody talking about Florida State is leaving the ACC is just wasting energy, because they're not. They're going to eventually, but they can't leave before the contract gives up. They can't do it. So there's no point in talking about it. It's really wasted energy, and I don't like to talk about hypotheticals like that. Who will take their place when they do leave? I don't care. I don't know, and I don't care. I'll report when it actually happens. I am not the one to have those types of conversations. Those are very, very ESPN-like conversations. Those are very fill the dead air conversations. I don't have dead air. I don't have dead off seasons. I don't have time to sit around and talk about hypotheticals. Who's better, Jordan or LeBron? I'll never have those conversations. That's all wasted energy and not my business in the slightest. So shout out to you for giving a shit, but I really don't care if FSU leaves the ACC. When they leave the ACC, they are currently contractually obligated to stay in the ACC, and there's no way for them to legally leave, so it's pointless. You can't even sue to leave. There you go. Nicholas Urias, Elijah Cooks, that is the wide receiver in the Nevada room that I was talking about. Elijah Cooks, Torrey Horton, Romeo Dobbs. It was an amazing wide receiver room. 2 guys actually transferred to San Jose State after that year. Yeah, Nevada had a really good wide receiver room. 3 NFL guys in the room, and nobody's paying attention to a Nevada wide receiver room back in 2021, except for me, because I'm RicoKnows. And that's the type of shit I dig in the crates for. Shout out to you, Nicholas Urias. Thank you for looking it up while I'm talking. You mentioned Gary Patterson the other day. Do you see him head coaching again? Yes. Yes, somebody should hire Gary Patterson. He's one of the best coaches in America. There's only 134 jobs out there for FBS head coaches. Gary Patterson is one of the best 134 head coaches in America, period. He is good. He's the reason TCU was in that national title game, not Sonny Dykes. Gary Patterson built that team. Gary Patterson is him. All right, back to the top 10. Number 10, Troy Calhoun, Air Force. How good has Air Force been? How great are they? This guy, Calhoun, head coach at Air Force for 17 years. Are you kidding me? 17 years. You're going to be a top 10 coach if you've been there for 17 years. 130 and 82. 130 and 82. He's doing it right. He's found out a way to win in the academies. He just had a draft pick, something Colorado didn't have. He just had their safety win the Jim Thorpe Award and had a draft pick to the Raiders. The Air Force has so many limitations on what you can do. Number one, they can't get any transfers. There is no such thing as transferring to a service academy. Their primary role is to create officers in the military. They are not allowed to redshirt. So they go to a prep school first, and then they play 4 years consecutively with no redshirting. Because if you get injured or you try to redshirt and stay another year, the government does not care. They need to create officers in 4 years or less. Shout out to wartime. With those limitations in place, Troy Calhoun has found a way to recruit, develop, and win. I think he's a great coach. Top 10 all day. Top 10 all day. Number 9, Tim Albin at Ohio. Tim Albin at Ohio. The fact that I have him ahead of Crandall might piss some people off. Candle, I'm sorry. The fact that I have him in the top 10 might make you scratch your head and be like, oh, is he really that good? Yes, he is. Frank Solich was great. Tim Albin was under Frank Solich. This feels like such stability in a program, in understanding how they want to develop players. I think Albin has just kept it going. Yes, he went 3-9 his first year. But we're talking about back-to-back 10-win seasons. We're talking about developing and identifying talent better than a lot of other teams. Rourke at quarterback. Say Bangura at running back. Like, they just have been doing it right. They had a dude named Wiggles at wide receiver last year. Sam Wiggles, Wigglers. I call him Wiggles. They just got studs everywhere. Their star linebacker, I think he just transferred. Where'd he go? Can't remember off the top of my head. Power 5. But when you're 13-3 in the MAC in the last 2 seasons, it's incredible. Because you're going up against Toledo, who's never under 500, who's got the coach of the conference and all this shit. Tim Albin is doing it. Now, the cupboard's bare for next year. Let me be very clear. Ohio's in trouble next year. The cupboard is bare. You lost your starting quarterback. You lost your backup quarterback. You're bringing in okay players. I don't like it at Ohio. They don't look good for next year. He's still a great coach. Shout out to Tim Albin. Number 8, Brian Bohannon, Kennesaw State. Some of y'all don't know, man. This is crazy. So Kennesaw State just moved up to the FCS level. Or, I'm sorry, the FBS level from the FCS. They're here in Georgia, if you don't know where Kennesaw State is. If you haven't had a chance to do any research on Kennesaw State, I don't blame you. It's all good. But Brian Bohannon is the only coach in the history of Kennesaw State. They just started playing in 2015. Okay? They ran like a triple option thing for a little bit, but he is 71-30 as a head coach. Pretty damn good to me. Pretty good to me. Good coach, good program, recruiting well. I remember they signed these 2 twins out of Irwin County, 1A school here in Georgia. They won state titles. I forget their names right now. I'm sure they're on the team. And it's just like, man, Kennesaw State's finding some players. Just watch. Kennesaw State, good coach. Brian Bohannon, the only coach in the school's history, and he's winning games. 7th place on my top 10, Bob Chesney. Bob Chesney. Yep, you don't know who he is because he's never coached at the FCS level, and I got him in the top 10. How dare I do this? This man took Holy Cross to 4 consecutive FCS playoffs. He's never been at the FBS level. I apologize. This is his first time coaching up here. 4 consecutive playoff appearances out of Holy Cross. Matthew Sluka ring a bell? Dobbs ring a bell? Like, they got studs, bro. And now he's at JMU. Bob Chesney going from Holy Cross to JMU. Complete stud. I love it. I don't care that he's never been at the FBS level. His head coaching record, I know his wins are all 1-1-1. His losses are probably 46. So 111-46 is his record, if I remember correctly. Shout out to Chesney. That's my guy. I got him number 7th overall. Number 6, Jeff Traylor, UTSA, everybody's pulling for him to get a job at a higher echelon. We know it. He's been there for 9 years building this program out of nothing. It's great. They only have one bowl appearance. That's why he's so far back. I know you believe in him. A lot of it has to do with some of the players he's found, some of the gems he's developed, but they're really good. Moving over from Conference USA to the American was a little bit daunting for them last year, but I like Jeff Traylor as a head coach. So he's 6 for me. Number 5, John Sumrall. Tremendous coach at Troy. Just got hired at Tulane. Taking over for the legendary Willie Fritz, who just moved over to Houston. Shout out to John Sumrall. That's a great coach at Tulane, having left Troy. Jeff Tedford is at number 4 for me. Fresno State. Don't get it twisted. Jeff Tedford is second to none. But, when we put them all together, we got to figure it out. This is his second time coaching at Fresno State. I love Jeff Tedford. Jeff Tedford is them. They have great coaches. Shout out to Mikey Keene and all their players. They just got 2 stud wide receivers from the FCS. Cheatin' James. Go turn on the tape on little Cheatin' James out of Idaho State. Dude is the truth. Number 3, Rich Rodriguez. Rich Rodriguez, he was once great at Western Michigan. I'm sorry, West Virginia. He was once great there. Yes, he ran into some struggles at Arizona, but who hasn't struggled at Arizona? Tucson's a boring place. He finally gets back on the map, and he's here at Jacksonville State. They played great last year, and they got some players, man. They got some players this offseason that, to me, feels like they're going to stay relevant, right? As long as they don't play that quarterback. Who's that quarterback? The kid who transferred in from Nebraska. Oh, God, he's terrible. Oh, he was on my quarterbacks list. I had him at the very bottom. I forgot his name. Number 2, Barry Odom from UNLV, former SEC head coach. You get an SEC head coach, you pay him real money, right? I think he's the highest paid coach in the Mountain West. You get him to UNLV, he's going to do the rest. He knows how to do this shit. He's run this at a high level before. He was a 500 coach when he was in the SEC, meaning he won just as many games as he lost. Barry Odom is good, and UNLV is good because of him. And my number 1 coach in the group of 5, Jamie Chadwell, dominant at Coastal Carolina, shows up to Liberty, inherits a roster that Hugh Freeze built. It doesn't matter. Bro is a great race car driver. He didn't have to build this race car. He just drives it, and he drives it well. Okay, shout out to him. He's an F1 driver. This is a man that's won everywhere he's been, from North Greenville, Charleston. It doesn't matter where he's at. Chadwell is him. Jamie Chadwell is the best coach in the group of 5. So once again, I just gave you guys a rank on 66 different coaches in the group of 5. I put them in order. If you want to hear about your favorite coach, rewind the show, go slow. I'm going in order. Learn a little bit about every single team in America. If you want to learn about all the FBS coaches, I did that episode a couple days ago. Go to YouTube. Click on the live tab, not the videos, the live tab on my homepage, and you will find all the podcast, okay? That will get you there. I'm going to show you guys when I drag it in the channel right now. Bear with me. If you click on live, just like this, I'm in here. I clicked on live, and this little live button, instead of videos, live, it shows you all the live streams. Right now, we're doing this show here, but if you wanted to know about the best college football coaches in America at the FBS level, here it is. Defensive lineman in the ACC. I do a daily post-workout Q&A, usually every morning. People watch it. This is my ACC spring transfer portal review and grades. This is me discussing every single wide receiver core in America for 2024. It is 3.5 hours long. I went deep on that. This is me talking about the top 25 NCAA sophomore running backs. So who's going to be the best sophomore running back next year? This is me talking about the top 50 first-year starting quarterbacks in college football next year. All the stuff you guys have been asking for, all the content about the players and the next season, it's been made. You just have to go see it and dig around a little bit. It's on the live tab. Yes, there are videos. If you click on the video tab, there's a ton of videos. But a lot of this is MVP, UFC type stuff. Some of it is transfer portal updates, draft reviews, hidden gems. There's a mixture of things. Go slow. Enjoy the content for what it is. I thank you guys for supporting the channel. Thank you guys for making my life possible. Just remember, your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all. I'm out.